What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hatoraid Live, the Hatoraid Hour podcast. We are live on this Friday evening. Thank you for joining in. We have a special guest. We've got Harbottle. We've got a special guest from Harbottle that we're going to be talking to for the next hour or so. But before we get started, as always, let's have fun. Let's be kind to one another. And let's keep it G-rated. All right, well, let me introduce... Get my stuff here. Cody from Harbottle, the director, Cody Hiebert or Hiebert, I believe, depending on where you're at from Canada. But we were actually supposed to do this last week on Friday, but if you guys follow the news, if you saw my posts, there was a massive, like crazy storms, tornadoes that happened and just blew out millions of people's power. I was one of those people. So Thursday evening, I actually left my house around 6:30 to go watch the movie. I was going to do like an out of the theater reaction on it and stuff. Left my house, got 5 minutes away, and the sky just completely turned black. There was like lightning, like the sky was turning different colors. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn back around and go home and wait this out. Took me another 15 minutes to get back home. By the time I got back home, my power was out. It was out for like about a day and a half. So I was talking with Cody and I was like, "Hey man, I don't think it's gonna happen." So we had to cancel it, unfortunately. But we're back now. No storms, no lightning, no tornadoes, and I think we're good.
Give her one of these,
right? So yeah, my first experience with Harbottle. So I had heard the name before, just kind of around, maybe in forums and stuff. But my first experience with Harbottle was at Doyle's house. I did a updated home theater tour, and he got some additional subs, but he got a Harbottle, and he was like, "Hey man, you got to come check this thing out." So when I went over, I was like, "Oh wow, this thing is built like a tank." It wasn't even breaking a sweat. So I was like, you know what? I don't know if a lot of other people know about Harbottle. Maybe they do, but it seems like it's one of those names that you kind of hear about, you just don't really know about. So I was like, you know what, let me get them on the channel and, kind of give an introduction, talk about some of their products, talk about the history. So welcome, Cody.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So yeah, why don't we have just kind of like a bit of a Harbottle introduction, just kind of give like a brief introduction of the company, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the ins and outs of Harbottle. So what is Harbottle?
Well, Harbottle is little subwoofer base oriented company out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And it's actually named after my wife. That's her maiden name, Caitlin Harbottle. And I started in audio by actually consulting a business and just getting some financials squared away and some processes and things like that. And that process, I started learning a lot about audio because I thought if I'm going to advise a company on how to do something, I should at least learn, a few things so I know what is and is not possible. And I just picked it up and I had a knack for it. And I started working with, he's been my friend now for 15 years, Nathan Funk from Funk Audio. And I started building my own stuff, designing my own stuff, and kind of getting into the details of what this engineering process was. And before you know it, I've got a couple of product lines and we're full steam ahead, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So that kind of leads me into, the next topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about the history of Harbottle. That's interesting. I didn't realize that comes from your wife's maiden name.
Yeah,
but that's pretty cool.
She's the one that kind of pushed me into doing it because like I was doing R&D and just like basically DIY, but it was like at an R&D level. I was trying to figure things out about audio. Like I'm mechanically minded, so my personal viewpoint of audio is that it's not an acoustic device. It's an electromechanical device, And so that's the way I approached the engineering. And she really, like, she was never an audiophile, but she's got great ears. Like, the girl can hear really well. And she was making these connections in what she heard versus, like, details and things. And she sat me down and said, Cody, I think you should kind of strike out on your own, because like what you do is unreal. Like, it's fantastic. So I have her to thank. And of course, Nathan as well. I mean, he encouraged me a few times, but he doesn't have the push that my wife does.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So to transition from that, why don't you tell us a little bit about Cody yourself? Maybe some of your, like, how you got into home audio, your home theater journey, building speakers and subs. Like, how did you get into this hobby and, home theater enthusiasts, speakers, all that stuff?
Well, like I said, I started out consulting, but my journey really began when I started making connections between realism in sound. Like, I was born into a very musical family. My father has perfect pitch. Like, he can hear perfectly. And I wasn't blessed with that gift. And so I had to learn how to hear. I had to learn to differentiate sounds and be able to pick things out. And I started picking up music, guitar. I started off playing bass, guitar, went into drums. And all of those instruments are fairly percussive. They've got a lot of texture and different tonal qualities, and even within the same instrument, but from one type of instrument to another, or different settings or whatever. And being able to pick up sounds and understand what a real sound is like. And that kind of transferred over into other things that led me to my life. Like, I'm a tradesman. I started off in plumbing, gas fitting. I went into HVAC, became an HVAC tech. In a lot of those fields, you walk into a noisy environment, but I started using hearing to pick up, like, what should a pump sound like? What should a boiler sound like? What is a gas-fired, whatever, makeup air unit or whatever? What is a fan or an electric motor? What do these things sound like? And I could pick up audible cues for different things. So it's just something that I picked up and practiced a lot because I wanted to play music. That's really what I wanted to do. And then I got jaded in hi-fi. I spent a lot of money. The audio gear didn't work out. And so I actually regressed into head-fi. Like, I just got a pair of studio headphone monitors, and that's all I had for years. I remember wearing the pads out so that the foam was just crumbling. And I went from that to consulting in business because I owned a couple of companies, and I was kind of not adept at making money, but I could make a business work from a functional standpoint. And I just had a thirst. Like, once I got into it, I just had a thirst for learning and figuring stuff out. And along with my trades education, I went to university, and I have a pretty decent background in structural engineering. And I took that education and I applied it in physics and in the equipment that I was building and playing around with. And lo and behold, under my friend Nathan's tutelage and trying some things, having a few failures, a lot of failures, and just keeping at it, that's how I kind of moved into audio. And I wouldn't necessarily say I do call myself a bass specialist, or our company specializes in bass because we do subwoofers, but really the principles can be applied to every single speaker driver out there. what I specifically do is specialize in the behavior of a speaker underneath its impedance peak. So the frequencies below the impedance peak where it goes up, that range, that's what I specialize in. And the benefits kind of translate into other, speaker behaviors, but it's very noticeable. Like it really shows up in subwoofers. So that's how I got to where I am now. It's been a weird journey, I'll be honest with you. Like I didn't expect this. I never expected to be interviewed. My
Hey,
so
when you're in this industry, man, it happens. It
yeah,
means you're doing something good.
yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So what about the now you briefly touched on it in the beginning, but the history of Harbottle. So Harbottle, is named after your wife's maiden name. You talked about Funk Audio, I believe Nathan, right?
Yep.
That's pushed you. So how when did Harbottle come into existence? When did the company? When was the birth of the company?
I started in 2016,
Okay.
2015, 2016.
So not even 10
I
years yet.
started,
Okay.
yeah. So I started selling raw drivers into Europe. That's where I started,
Okay. Interesting.
and um, I was selling to manufacturers that were building speakers and subs and all of that. And around that time, like through 2014, 2016, there were some spurts of good economics from North America to the EU, but ultimately things kind of took a turn, and that particular well um, dried up. And so I found it really necessary to diversify, like, and that's where my wife and Nathan, um, that's where Nathan really started pushing for me to develop my own product, because he knew what I could do from a structural standpoint in designing enclosures. Like I don't like to say that I design enclosures. I like to say that I engineer them, because I engineer them like 60 ways from Sunday. I put a lot into them, a ton, because my perspective is that the enclosure is there to resist seismic activity. Like if you're asking 5-10 hertz out of a speaker, 1 hertz, whatever, you're asking it to resist infrasonics, which is getting into seismic type territory. It's shaking things. And although it's not tectonic plates, going at it, it is definitely a lot of work for the enclosure to handle. And asking, something with a few sticks of bracing to hold up, it it doesn't really work that way. And over bracing something really doesn't work either, because you can focus too much on specific aspects that don't really pay off any dividends. So knowing where that line is, and Nathan saw that I had that ability. I can look at a problem and start dissecting it. And the first couple of enclosures that I designed worked like really well. He was super impressed, and he just kind of kept on me to really explore what I could do in finished product. And it was that kind of economic push, like with the economy shifting and raw drivers not really working out. And I mean, I was unknown too. Like even though I've been in audio for a while, like 5 or 6 years, I was still unknown. Like you get yourself published in some trade magazines and that sort of stuff, and you just kind of start and see what happens. And the soiree, I think it is, whatever word that is, that kind of transition into finished product. I think that's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me personally, because it's forced me to do so much. Like my R&D catalog in subwoofers is absolutely huge. Like, I've got so much design work under my belt. Like, all I've been doing since 2016 up until today is, like, aside from running the business, but it's all R&D, like all research, development, designing products, engineering subwoofers. That's all I've done since 2016. So that makes up the lion's share of my work. And yeah, I mean, I think the whole aspect of starting, from an organic standpoint, it's, yeah, legally, we came into existence like 2016, 2017 or something like that. And, but the process has been like, growing, like growing a tree. It takes years and, a lot of exposure to, the right elements and everything. And then, things start to develop. So, yeah, I mean, it could wind it all the way back to when I was a kid, but, yeah, I think Harbottle is something really special. I mean, I, I like that it started to begin with, and I'm very grateful to my best friend Nathan and my wife Kate for, pushing me into this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your history with us. So we got a couple of people in the chat so far. We got Siphonics Audio says, "Evening, fellas."
Hey, man.
We've got Home Theater Denmark. "Hey all, tango in the chat, and I'm not here to dance." Nice. We got Kevin S says, "Hey Jordan and Cody, good evening, fellas." Good evening to you, sir.
Oh, is that Kevin from GSG?
I don't know. It's possible.
Well,
I'm not
either
sure.
way.
Yeah, either way.
Shout out, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. So if you're just tuning in, we've got Harbottle, Cody from Harbottle. He's the director. We have him telling us a little bit about himself, a little bit about Harbottle, the company. Now we're going to talk about some of the products that are offered, because my only experience with Harbottle, like I said, was at Doyle's house when I did his updated home theater, and he had that. I believe it's a 21-inch sub, right?
24.
20,
He's got
24. That's right.
He's got what was billed as an M24.
M24. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thing is
Monster.
massive, beautiful driver. I mean, we were cranking it, and we were like, is that driver moving? We went back there and we put our hand on it, like, yeah, it's working, but it's just it didn't have to do it, like it wasn't breaking a sweat. So we couldn't physically like see it moving. But yeah, what kind of go ahead.
And that's cool because that's an underhung motor. That thing is designed to move. And if it's barely moving, I mean, that subwoofer, I'm pretty sure I think I know where it came from. And I remember testing it, and we were dancing on 37 millimeters one way.
Wow.
And we were pressuring up, that shop was like 82,000 cubic feet, and we had 3 of them running, and we were getting noise complaints like an eighth of a mile away.
Wow. Yeah. That is awesome.
Like, oh yeah, we were doing like the full gamut. So that particular subwoofer, that can take 150 volts peak to peak on each side of the coil, because it's a dual voice coil. So that's a total of 300 volts to that thing. And and it's an infrasonic beast. Everything from 5 hertz to 125 hertz.
5 hertz. That's I mean, I definitely felt it. It felt like there was butt kickers. But I know Doyle said that when I got there, he was like doing the calibration himself with Dirac, because normally Matt Trinkline from Storm Audio does it remotely, but since he stacked his per listen subs, he was saying that Dirac Art, they were still working on this, like calibrating for stack subs. I don't think it was ready yet, But I think he just texted me, I think this week, a couple of days ago, and he was like, dude, he's like, Matt Trinklin, he calibrated it. And he's like, whatever he did, he's like, this room is, he's like, my wife is mad now. He said, after she calibrated it, he said she was mad.
Yeah.
We're like, well, he did his job then. So yeah, he wants me to come over there and check it out. I told him it may be a few months just because I got a lot of stuff coming up in the next few months, but I want to go over and hear the difference now. But he said it's ridiculous.
I had one client. You're talking about butt kickers.
Hmm.
I had one client. He had a couple of my subs at the front stage of his, and they had he had like a resonance in his couch.
His
And
couch.
he didn't do anything about it. He's just like, oh, they got a resonance. That's weird. And he could feel it in his couch. And he just kind of left it because he thought it was kind of cool or whatever.
Hmm.
But it only happened when he put my subs in his room.
That's
And
funny.
after a while, he was just sitting on the couch one day and he's cranking up something. I think he's like playing some sort of first shooter video game or whatever, first person shooter. And all of a sudden his couch collapsed. Bang.
Really?
Yeah, he just like vibrated his couch.
That's hilarious.
That thing. And that was pretty funny.
Oh
So
man.
Doyle should watch that. He might break some furniture.
He might. Oh, he told me. He said that he was getting like. I think he said he was getting some cracks or. Actually, let me pull up what he said because I think he said he got some damage, which might be why his wife was mad. But let me pull up his text message. So, all right. He says. Yeah, he says the depth of the bass is absolutely frightening. It's scary, man. The wife was mad during the Batman chase scene, and we were still 20 decibels under reference.
Oh,
So
yikes.
that's crazy, man.
That's
He
dynamic headroom,
yeah,
brother. Wow.
he's got a crazy system over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
Jump into some products offered here.
Yeah, we got so Denmark. He says
Oh,
it's 2 a.m. He says it's late for me, 2 a.m. So he asked a question I was going to start, but since it's 2 a.m., I'm going to be respectful of your time and post this question up here. So he says, question about your subs, the ones on your that are marked in the U.S. Are they mainly for your country, or is it worth it to get them imported, or would that increase the price too much? And the second part of his question says, I ask because I keep looking around in Denmark for these types of subs, but can't find any.
that's always a tough one because like I do have overseas clients. Our position is that like when it comes to import fees and duties and all that stuff, I can't control what a country charges its residents or its citizens. Like whatever the country is doing, that's what they're doing. Like, my government does that to me when I import goods and work with them and build them into things. So you can buy our products, and we do ship all over the world. Whether or not it's worth it for you individually, that would be something that you would have to explore. And so I'd encourage you to reach out to me directly. You can contact us through our website. You can contact me on WhatsApp, by phone, email, or if you're looking at the Cassini product line, Cassini is what do you call it? Representative specific. So you can contact anybody on our representative page, the client support page, and they will, be glad to help you and get things figured out. What essentially happens is we'll build a product. Like all of our product is built to order, with the exception of National Audio Video in Edmonton, and I believe Acoustic Frontiers in the Bay Area, California. I believe they're stocking some product as well as networker services. I think networker services, networker home theater services or cinema services, they're I think they're stocking a little bit of product too, and so you can buy product and just get it drop shipped straight to your residence or your nearest shipping depot. And I encourage you to inquire inquire with your customs um, services, like your customs agent, and ask them what the import duty structure is and fees and taxes would be on importing speaker and audio products into your country, and that would be the best way to find out what the correlation is between the price and your goals will be.
And by the way, so you said contact Harbottle Audio. What is that? How can they? I want to put that here on the screen. Is it just a website or email or?
Yeah, you can go to our website. Do you have our website there, George?
Yeah. Let me actually add it to the stage because we're going to be talking about that anyway. So that's going to bring us into products offered. So if you want to go ahead and hit on that, Home Theater Denmark has another comment. He says, I fully understand the cost can be different. I will have to look and think more. I got my main sub from M&K, but want 2 more for near field and subsonic. I will have to rewind and write down. Okay.
Yeah. Take a beat and take some time to think. But yeah, that's the client support certified representative page. So there's me, Cody Hiebert. I handle all the global interests, and that's my email address. So feel free to reach out.
Leave that up there for a few seconds so anybody that's watching this after the fact can hit that and pause. Okay. So, yeah, that's going to bring us into Harbottle products offered. So you can talk a little bit about what kind of products you guys offer and all the good stuff.
All right. So on our website, we have all carbon series, but I'll break it up into loudspeakers, subwoofers. So loudspeakers is just carbon series, internet direct speakers. I got a center channel, C7M, and then the full 5.2 channel surround. So it's 5 speakers, LCR, and then rear surrounds. And that comes with 2 subwoofers. So you can order it and you can use pick between 2 C24L1s or 2 C18L1s. And then I've got my floor standing speakers, the C7-2s, and then I've got my C7Ms or C7s, bookshelf speakers. And
now tell me real quickly while you're on those, that one and the towers, those are some little bit different design. How did you and I'm sure there's some like scientific stuff in there. And by the way, guys, we are going to kind of do like a series. So we're going to be doing some future live streams. We don't have any dates yet, but we're going to be talking maybe a little bit more like deep dive on some of the aspects of, like subwoofers and some stuff that me and Cody have talked about. But I was just curious because when I went to the website and I saw the speakers, I was like, oh, that's a different design. So what is the purpose of that specific design right there?
So essentially what it is it splits ratios. Like you've heard of Fibonacci, the golden ratio Fibonacci sequence. So essentially what I've done is I've taken that sequence and I've just offset it a little bit so that the ratios of each panel, like you can see that the depth of the panel for the C7 II is pretty shallow. Like it's not a very deep speaker. Most loudspeakers start getting pretty deep. Well, it's a little bit more, siphonics. He called my speakers resolute. I love that word. I still use it. Thanks for introducing me to that descriptive word, man. So it kind of widens out the front baffle a little bit, but then we taper it in. So it tapers to the back, which is good for like corner placement and all that. And the ratios of the panels essentially aid. They don't cancel all resonances, but they aid in just lowering resonances just a little bit. And then the carbon fiber laid over top. The carbon fiber, a lot of people talk about it like a nice finish. It was actually never designed or intended to be a nice finish. It's just me not caring about what it looks like. Like, what the carbon fiber does is it braces and reinforces the enclosure from the outside. So it acts like an external brace without having like external bracing all around. Because like when a driver goes into a cabinet, it's pushing air against all the panels, and when it's going out, it wants to suck all the panels in, right? And it doesn't matter if it's really amplified in a subwoofer, but with a loudspeaker, the same principles apply. And so what it does is it damps and braces the enclosure from the outside. And also got that cue from Kate, my wife, when she was looking at wanting a bookshelf speaker. She wanted a bookshelf speaker that actually fit on a bookshelf and had room to move it around. And so the C7s, which were the start of all of that, they have that. They're, shallow depth. They're a little bit wider, like a little bit resolute. And they fit anywhere. So it's kind of like this hopeless pragmatism mixed with a little bit of science to, combine and make a really neutral, inert enclosure that just shuts up and doesn't get involved and allows the speaker drivers to do what they're good at. And that's about it.
Nice. So carbon fiber, that's the driver, correct? Or
That's the enclosure.
so this enclosure. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're not using HDF, MDF. That's straight carbon fiber.
Oh, we're using birch ply.
Birch. Okay.
Very hard to get Baltic birch nowadays. So, but we did find a birch product from a specific manufacturer that is within like 2 or 4% of what Baltic birch ply
Okay.
is. So it performs equally as well on the end. Like when you get to the end of a finished product, it performs nearly enough the same. And then carbon fiber is laid on top and vacuumed into shape.
Gotcha.
So essentially, when we release the vacuum, like the vacuum squeezes the carbon fiber on, and when the vacuum's released, the carbon fiber is still squeezing. Like it doesn't relax and go sloppy and fall off. It's tight, right? So it continues to brace and reinforce the enclosure. The driver, some of our drivers, like all of our subwoofers, they all have carbon fiber drivers, carbon fiber cones, but the enclosure on these products are carbon fiber birch composite.
Gotcha.
Is what they are.
Okay.
Would you like
By
me
the
to go to subwoofers now?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. By the way, Kevin S says yes. GSG Kevin. So what's up,
Hey,
Kevin?
buddy.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
Yeah, all you guys know each other, man.
Well, I've talked
Which
to
is
Kevin.
cool.
I've had back and forth with Kevin for a number of years.
Yeah.
A few of his clients have my drivers and in their boxes, and
He makes some good
pretty
stuff.
good. Yeah, they do.
I've heard a lot of good stuff about GSG. You know, I don't have any personal experience with them, but talked to him briefly. I think on LinkedIn, and I know a lot of people uses enclosures and stuff. Makes really good stuff.
Yeah, they're still in business for a reason. They know what they're doing. So then we got our Carbon Series subwoofers, again, internet direct. So, call or place an order online. This is a online store, so you can buy straight from us. We got the C24L1, so it's like the entry level 24-inch. And this kind of goes through a breakdown of all the product. Then we got the L1 information tab that gives like the standing weight and all the features, amplification, power, all that stuff. And then we get into performance. And then we got like output CA2010 at 2 meters. This is according to our engineering platform, which we'll do in another video, but it's called LVLC.
Okay.
And people can see right there. That's what you'll get at those frequencies.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I mean, for entry level, 94 at 10 and 121 at 100.
That's entry level.
That's
That's
the
scary.
entry 24. The L2, that's where things start to get a little bit more haywire, and again, that's reflection free. So stick that in a room and the discussion changes dramatically. Interestingly enough, these numbers here are what Doyle could experience with his subwoofer, because
It's wild.
it's very close to the same thing. It doesn't have the low resonance that the carbon enclosure has because it's just wood. It doesn't have the added benefit, but that should be about what he could get out of it if he, decided to go crazy with the amplifier.
Now, so do your subs come with plate amps, or do you have to is it something separate that you have to hook up to and put in a rack or something?
Plate amps.
Plate amps, okay.
Yeah, they're all built in, and typical 120 volts is all that's needed for the small ones, like the L1s, and then XLR balanced inputs, and then you can network them into your home network with Ethernet cable.
Nice.
So yeah, you can see it in your home network and make any changes, whatever you want. And of course, with our certified representative program, you also have access to a lot of guys that are Trinov certified and Storm certified and HAA, or any number of certifications, acoustic specialists, all that stuff that can really take that subwoofer and get it across the finish line for you to a real exceptional degree. And this is the C24L2. It's essentially the same thing, but it has double the power, double the amplification, so 4.4 kilowatts. And yeah, that 10,400 watts peak. So that allows for more aggressive tuning in our DSP. So the big difference is how we're extracting more out of the subwoofer driver. It's not just more power laid on top and then we just kind of walk away. It's we actually tune the subwoofer to get more out of it, because our goal with every sub is to get as close to destruction as possible, with it being safe and dependable, and you can use it there all day long, every day for 5-10 years and not have to worry about anything. So essentially you can run it right up to and bounce it off the red limiter, a half a dozen times through a movie, and there's no issues. There's no sound quality degrading. There's no worry of smoking the driver or blowing something up or whatever, the amplifier detonating itself. Nothing. It's just designed to work full out, and anything under that point it's still going to render the same sound quality. So those are the main differences between L1 and L2, is how we're extracting more out of the subwoofer. Okay. And then we get into the C18s. So this is the entry level C18L1. And of course, the same entire lineup. And then the performance numbers as well to show you what you can get. And an interesting part is where we limit compression. I think we're like the only subwoofer manufacturer that actually talks about a compression limit. And so at these output numbers, the maximum compression that you could experience is 1 decibel. And we look at that in terms of energy. So how efficient the subwoofer is acting and behaving in real world content program playback. So that's one interesting feature. And then
Okay.
we go to the L2, and it's all the same rinse repeat stuff. There's a number of different options. Like you can get the display location on the front or on the back. You can select a vertical or a horizontal orientation. So the subwoofer will show like it'll be wide. It'll be as wide as the vertical is tall. So if you need to slip it under a screen or what have you, or you just like the look of the horizontal subwoofer better, then that's the one to go for.
So
Or
like I guess that would be good for maybe like waveforming. If you're trying to do
yep,
waveforming, you want to, have like a wall of subs or stack some subs or something. Are in that configuration? Is there any type of like mounting options, or does it need to be placed on the floor or stacked on top of each other? Is there any like type of
we recommend
configuration?
pedestals.
Pedestals? Okay.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do waveforming, like I have a client right now that's doing that with like four of my 24s. He's doing waveforming off of that,
Nice.
and he's putting them up on pedestals, and then like locating them, through his front baffle wall, because the baffle wall has to be constructed anyway. So
Okay.
the main speakers need to be elevated and placed specifically. So he's just doing the same thing with his subwoofers, and I've actually got like 2 or 3 clients that have done that with waveforming in view. And yeah, they're just putting them up on pedestals and all of that. The waveforming guys tend to go for the black tint. Black tint is called blackout. That's the finish color, and just kind of punches up the blackness, the darkness, and it makes it a little bit more dramatic. And it's got a fairly low sheen to it, so it's really effective for operating behind a screen. Like minimizing like reflections off of things from behind the screen when you're running a projector. The clear, that's just straight on the carbon fiber. If you want that raw carbon fiber look, I started off with clear lacquer, and because like for me, the whole thing about the carbon enclosure was that it's not that I didn't care what it looked like, it's that wasn't the focus. Like the appearance wasn't the focus.
Right.
Performance, I was just like looking at it like, this is a race car and I want it to go fast, and
Yep.
I want it to do everything that a race car could do and should do. And yeah, so that's that's kind of the thing there. So yeah, you can make your selections and all that. And then from there, we actually go into Cassini,
And
which
before
is our
before you do that, real quick, we have another question. He
yeah.
says, Home Theater Denmark says, is there any safety stuff built into the sub, like per listen subs when they run hot? I know they do some limiting on their subs. I don't know about the compression if that's the same thing that they do, but you can talk to that if you want. But then it says they turn themselves down a bit until they can go all in again, so to speak. Hope you get my point.
So essentially, like, unless there's something dramatic, like crazy wrong with how the subwoofer is set up, like you're running like a clip signal or something like that, you're not going to run into that situation where you get into a thermal limit condition. Like we do have thermal limiting safeties on high thermal limit, which is like essentially the epoxy will boil itself out of the amplifier,
Oh
or
wow.
like we use like aviation grade super high temp epoxies, and there has to be something really wrong with the setup for that to happen, for those things to go on. Then we have a high limit fan that engages on high temp. So like the HVAC guy that I am, it's just basically a switch that senses high temperature, engages, and starts to blow air. So we don't have fans running all the time under normal operation. And like normal operation is like the SPL numbers that are posted. Like that's normal for us. Like that it should be able to handle that. Under normal operation, there's no fans running. It's all passively cooled, and the fan kicks on when things start going awry. If it goes past that point where there is the problem doesn't de-escalate from some fan cooling, it'll start pulling power and start reducing so it can save itself. So there's a lot of safety features in there. Like the compression aspect is more of an audible thing, like a driver compression issue where the driver is running into its own limits. But we determine that by being able to achieve stroke. So that's like a performance metric. When you're talking about safeties, we're talking about self-preservation or preservation of the unit. And so the electronics have a lot of sensing equipment in there. Actually, you're from Denmark. I've been open about this a lot. We use Pascal, which is out of Denmark. So we use Pascal modules, amplifier modules, and we tune them and tweak them for our application. And our DSPs are purpose-built for those modules, and there's a ton of protection built in, as well as just good sensible limiting, like voltage limit, voltage limit, stroke limit, or like output limit, amperage limit. All of those things kind of coalesce into making it a very dependable, safe unit to run flat out. The idea is like a big ocean liner, big ocean ship, like a shipping freight ship. They run all day, every day at like 200, 300 RPM lower than their maximum. And they're perfectly stable, safe, reliable, even the most fuel efficient at that speed. But you go like 300 RPM more and you're into the red zone where, it's like, okay, things need to, dial back a bit. That's kind of like what we're doing. You can run our gear really hard right up within its limit and to the end of its limit, and it'll be fine. Like it's designed to work there. Perfectly stable, and do it for years. Like we engineer for 10-year operation. Okay. And that's really beating on it for a really long time. Like excessive abuse.
So it's kind of like a laser projector, they're rated for like 20,000 hours, but that's if you're running it like 8-10 hours a day for 20 years. So as long as you're not beating it to death every single day, it's going to last longer than the 10 years. That. But yeah. And what's the warranty on your product?
We run 4 years, but on statistical warranty, like my warranty rate is 0. I haven't had a warranty issue since I started. I had one quote unquote warranty, but I kind of made it up just so I could have one, and I helped the guy out. But yeah, when I was talking to a business consultant about it, he's like, "You don't have a warranty?" He's like, "Yeah." So he's like, "I can't really qualify designing a warranty package for you if you actually haven't had anything fail, because like where do you know your failure point
right.
is?" I was like, "Well, we don't engineer obsolescence into our product." He's like, "No engineered obsolescence." He's like, "Technically, you don't even need a warranty. Like, you could just say none, and legally it's fine. But you have to have something."
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
So, Home Theater Denmark also says, would you advise using one 230 volts for each sub, or can you use two subs for one 230 outlet? In Denmark, we
Oh,
run 13 amps and 16 amps.
oh, 230 volt on two subs, no problem. Like you can run, you'll be power limited. Like I don't recommend doing it, but like here in North America on 120 or 115 volt circuit, 15 amp breaker, you can run 3 or 4 of my subwoofers, no problem. I mean, you'll probably pop some breakers at that point, when you're really getting into it. But yeah, like 230, you can run 4 subwoofers easily and not notice anything. As far as amperage goes, what'd you say, 13 or 16 amp?
He said, yeah, he says in Denmark, we run 13 amps and 16 amps.
I'd probably just default to 16 amp, just because. I mean, 13 amps should be more than enough, but yeah, like that kind of gets into like amplifier behavior and like how much sustain or how long a frequency is being held, on either side of the sine wave, like what the duration is. So like, is it a 5 hertz frequency and what's the amplitude and all that stuff. So for being pragmatic about it, I'd probably go 16 amp breaker, 16 amp circuit. And that way, you got your amperage covered without any issue.
Yeah, he says, I got 5 230 volt 13 amp outlets that he has just for his gear, both 13 and 16.
Yeah, that's lots. Yeah, like he would be able to run, well, you said 5?
He says he's got 5 230 volt 13 amp outlets.
Yeah, he'd be able to run like at least 15 of my subwoofers
Jesus.
off of that.
So
15,
you're good, bro.
Yeah, you're like 15 to 20. Yeah, 15, 20. Yeah, you could do
Wow.
20 on that. That's a lot. He would break a lot of his house.
Yeah, he says in the kitchen we mainly use 16 amp because of Owen. I don't know if that means oven and stuff that demand. Yeah, oven that demands more power, but rest of the house are mainly 13 amps.
Yeah.
Symphonic says get 20.
I personally wouldn't have a problem running 13 amps on any of my Cassini subs, like the Cassini tradition that I have up here.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and talk about that? We kind of got a little bit off topic, but it's okay.
Or helping a guy out.
Yeah. It's all good.
Fun.
It's all good.
It's fun. Talking about myself is boring.
Good transition into the Cassini subs.
So the Cassini subs, they're available through our certified representative network. And essentially what happened is last year, I wouldn't say that I got like a lot of notoriety because I didn't really see myself in any media very much. I mean, a little bit here and there, but I think people started kind of taking more notice, and I came to the realization that I can't direct all of this and do all the work myself as far as like customer service and support. And so what I actually did is I dug into the pool of my client base, and I started working with Niall at Acoustic Frontiers, and we went from looking at doing subwoofers that fill a void for like home theater and just kind of more like good quality sound without the pomp and circumstance of a big flashy speaker, right? And then we quickly segued into an ODM project, which we build for them on top of doing all the stuff that we already do. And that ODM project is a complete line of subwoofers called Hyper Sub that he's putting out, and we're the manufacturer for that. And then Cassini kind of came along, not in tandem with it because I was already working on it for a little while, but I started tracking it with my previous clients that I know are like certified integrators, and they've got a pretty deep knowledge. They have my product, or they have Funk Audio product. They know what they're doing, and this is literally a product of working with them and getting feedback from them on what people are generally looking for when it comes to home audio and low frequency support. And so Cassini Tradition came out, and it just gives like a little brief thing. Is identified by the 3mm radius corner treatments, kind of like a nod to the traditional aesthetic elements of audio gear. But then we infuse it with a lot of super high tech stuff. So where the transition is in building the Carbon series subwoofers, there's only so much that I can do to make it worthwhile. So like building a 12-inch subwoofer, not really worthwhile in a carbon enclosure, because cost benefit just isn't there. Like it would be the same price as building my 18s. So like all you're doing is just getting a smaller subwoofer. And so from like a scaling standpoint, it doesn't really fit. However, because of my engineering background with Cassini, I learned a lot through the carbon process. Like I learned a lot about structural physics in terms of mitigating essentially seismic activity, or like super low frequency activity. I call it seismic because that's what a lot of people can relate to fairly easily, even though it isn't. It's infrasonic activity. But I learned a lot from that in studying how my carbon enclosures work. And I applied that to a basic cube style subwoofer, just very traditional, straight ahead, no fuss, no muss, with a few nice finishes, like black, white, and clear walnut. And I started playing around with bracing and doing crazy calculations with bracing to make the internal bracing structure work the same way that my Carbon series subwoofers work. So essentially what you get with Cassini, number one, the motor topology is more efficient. So you get a higher efficient subwoofer, which allows for better usage of stroke. So on stroke, you get, it's not that you get more stroke, it's that what it can produce is really good quality and a really hefty amount of it on a little bit less power, like 2200 watts versus 2400, that sort of thing. And the bracing structure inside allows the enclosure to work essentially as good as a Carbon series subwoofer. I mean, it's as close as we can get without them being identical. Like there are some obvious limitations when you start taking away an external brace, but I got it really, really far with the bracing methods that I have in Cassini. And like tit for tat, these subwoofers present a really good diversification of product to SPL coming back, like product viability. The other thing that makes them really useful is they're ultra clean in the top end, like super clean in the top end. The Carbon series, they are very clean. They work very well. They conform to LDLC standards, our engineering methodology, our standards that we operate by. But these punch it up like a nice step towards the fidelity aspect. And this is what I mean by compression being the metric of efficiency. Driver compression is essentially the driver's inability to move. In other words, it can't articulate. So while it might be producing BL, it is having a very difficult time producing definition of sound. In other words, the sound of reality starts to fade, and you kind of get like this homogenized noise or thick or whatever. And while some people may like that, other people don't. And that's kind of where we sit. We go down the road of fidelity in allowing the driver to articulate and move really easily right up to its maximum mechanical limit, like as close as we can get to that without blowing anything up. And Cassini falls into that category. It takes what I've done with the Carbon series and then just kind of leans into that efficiency even more and harder. And so the return on your dollar, as far as the stroke coming back, in other words, the displacement, and then the associated performance across the bandwidth of that displacement, starts paying you big dividends because you're able to use more of it, which means that, like, for a waveforming system, you're not going to have these limitations of the driver making a whole bunch of noise because it's compressing on itself. You can really run things nice and freely and easily, and they work well. So that's the Cassini lineup. That's its whole purpose in life. And as you can see, we run from a 12-inch, 15, 18. We've got a single 21. I haven't made any. If there's no pictures of the subwoofer, it means I haven't built a finished product of that subwoofer. I have built test boxes and run tests on them, but a test box is ugly to photograph. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we got single 24s. I got a 24 that's a lot of people only really need, well, they feel that they only really need to go up to 80 hertz. So this 24 is designed from 80 hertz down to 5. All of our subwoofers rate right down to 5 hertz. That's
crazy.
Like that's the first, that's like job one, day one, first cup of coffee. Does it do 5 hertz? No, it's not LDLC. Throw it away, start again. Like all of our subwoofers do 5, the 12s, everything. But this one goes up to 80, but it's really, really efficient. Like the BL jump, well, that's a technical thing, but the motor force is way higher, and they just absolutely pound, and they're dead effortless in that range. And then we go up to dual drivers. So I got a 215 and a 218. And then I've got a 212 in a passive. So anything marked with an R just means radiator only. In other words, there's no amplifier or passive subwoofer. I like the R because it kind of reminds me of, like, the Yamaha R1 or the R6 motorcycles from when I used to ride motorcycles. So anything that doesn't have an R designation, they're all active. So they have a built-in amplifier. And yeah, so we got, single passive subwoofers. Our passive subwoofers, they are sold as a package with one of our rack amps. That's because the DSP programming that fulfills that subwoofer plays such a huge role in the success of that subwoofer that, it's not that I don't trust other people to do their own DSP work. It's that I know how to extract the most out of it because I engineered it and built it with Nathan. And, when it comes to getting the most out of it and knowing that it's going to work reliably and you can trust it, that's what people come to me for, because they know I know what I'm doing, and there's no guesswork. They don't have to mess around and try to, see if they can do just as good as. It's just part of the package. So all of our passive subwoofers, they are sold as a kit with one of our amplifiers. So you don't have anything to worry about as far as exceeding limits or doing any damage to your subwoofer. it's all still taken care of. And that rack amplifier it's like a rack amplifier. It sits on a shelf,
Okay.
you know, and they can fit in like like the home theater gear
Standard
rack.
rack, 19
Yeah,
inch rack. Yeah.
yeah, they fit in a standard rack. I think it's a uh, two
2U.
unit,
Okay.
yeah, 2U that it fits in. Um, yeah, so
So it
that
sounds like everything pretty much you guys do is in house, huh? Like you don't really outsource much.
no,
So you play
no,
like
everything is well. We do outsource a few parts, like our baskets. They come from overseas. Surrounds, spiders, but yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Everything
nice.
else, like our dust caps, cones, motors, um, like hard parts like magnets and things like that. They actually come from the U.S. Um, so yeah, it's a lot of North American made stuff. A
Nice.
lot of North American made stuff, and I believe on some of our motors we actually run the same magnets that Koenigsegg runs in some of their hypercars.
Wow.
I
Nice.
stumbled across that one day. I was like, oh, what? Is that cool or is that
That's
dangerous?
awesome.
I don't know.
Right?
But yeah,
Okay.
so that's all of our Cassini tradition product. Um, an interesting thing, like some of our pictures here, we see like the 118T.
Hmm.
Um, you click on the photo and you can see that the corners are radiused round. And in the description here, it says 118C Cassini subwoofer clear walnut. Corners are not as shown. I don't know why I wrote that. I obviously screwed that up somehow. Uh, um, the C designation is classic. In other words, if you want more of a classic look, you know, it's a nod to my best friend Nathan. Like the rounded corner thing has always been something that he's done, and these are actually pictures of his 18-inch subwoofer after or before we moved that product into Cassini. So these are actually his subs, and
Okay.
that 19 millimeter radius corner is just kind of like a nod to more classic type of look, whereas um, just one
So
second.
so while you're doing that, so explain to me again so Funk what products do they integrate with yours, or is it like the drivers, or what is it that they do that's integrated with Harbottle?
Well, um, what do you mean by
So
integrating?
you said like Funk Audio, you work with Funk Audio. So like, what are the products that
A
they
trade?
offer? Yeah.
Okay, so Funk Audio, they have their own line of subwoofers,
Right.
and we share a lot of the same tech. The difference is in how we execute. Like, um, it's the way we go about applying that technology. And there was enough of a difference that Nathan and I honestly didn't agree on very much. Like, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but like he didn't really agree with or want to get into like 15 and 12-inch subwoofers. I was the one that kind of, kicked that off because I knew that there was like um, a possibility that our motors could actually work with with that diameter, and we could get some pretty blistering performance out of these size of subwoofers. And I mean, real estate isn't cheap,
Yeah.
so people are moving things into smaller rooms, and and that sort of stuff. So from like a pragmatic standpoint, but then also from like a realistic standpoint, like, you know, with waveforming coming out and direct art and, you know, whatever else is going to follow in that wake, you know, the need for, you know, two massive, you know, 24s or 32s at the front of the room, you know, that's going to fall, you know, into a very specific niche category. It's not going to go away, but it's going to, like, as technology changes, you know, the market itself changes. And so, you know, some smaller subwoofers that are hyper capable become more attractive because they're easier to work with. They're easier to place. They're easier to get the result that you're looking for out of making a planar wave in the case of Trinnov waveforming. So we share, like, pretty much all the technology.
Gotcha.
But I apply it differently than Nathan. Like, and it's seen actually in Cassini. Like, if you look at the Carbon series subwoofers and you look at the best of what Nathan can do, the best of what I can do, and you take those two attributes and you combine them, and then when you lean on efficiency and like drive on it as much as you can, in other words, getting as much stroke out of that driver as you can, and really cleaning up the performance, what you end up with is Cassini. So it's a combination of what we do, where both of our strengths lie, and then just agreeing that we want efficiency out of it. And then Nathan and I just hammered on that to death. And Cassini fills that bill really well. And then when I started working with Niall at Acoustic Frontiers, he wanted more. Well, he told me he wanted something different than efficiency. And he put it in some different phrasing. I forget what it's been a few years now. But I took it as, okay, if I lean on efficiency even harder than I already am in Cassini, I'm going to be able to get that result, what he's looking for. Like, I know I'll get that. That's a foregone conclusion. So I took that aspect that Cassini does, and I just went crazy on it, really hard. And yeah, that's where kind of the term hypersub came from, and that's where hypersub came from. Is Cody just going nuts with design and just looking for every last scrap of efficiency. And hypersub is purpose built for home theater applications. Like, they're sold in complete packages as base, you know, purpose built base systems for HD. So that's where Nathan and I really jive. That's where things really come together from a design engineering standpoint, is when we just sit back and agree on efficiency. You know, all the rules kind of go out the window, and we get into this no compromise situation where we know that we're going to get the result that we're looking for. And yeah, so yeah, we share a lot of technology. We share the same motor topologies. So the M1, the M2, the M3, the M4, all four motors. You know, he builds my boxes. He builds all the Cassini boxes. He builds all the Carbon series boxes. He's an unbelievably good woodworker. And my strengths are all in tech and programming and electronics and all that stuff. And then I do the math. I hang out with a calculator. And I do math on speaker boxes.
Nice.
But
Well,
yeah, the Tradition series, I just wanted to show you that the corner treatment is a nice sharp 3mm round over. So it's not like true like razor, but it's a little bit of it's just like a broken soft corner. But yeah, that's the product line in Cassini. And then Did you want me to talk about raw drivers?
Is
Or
that
does
so?
anybody have any questions?
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you have any more questions. We're right at about an hour and 15 minutes, so we'll probably get close to wrapping it up. I know I had a couple questions because you mentioned something earlier on the. So, do all the subs have the Ethernet capabilities, or is it just the Carbon series?
All of them do.
Okay, so does that is there like a is there a web GUI like because you said you go into an internet? Is there a web GUI? Is there an app? How does that? How do you interact with that interface?
It's software.
Okay,
So you just
on your
you know
network, you
con-
just type in the like how do you get to the I guess the IP address?
no, it's not necessarily an IP address. It's software that you have on a computer,
Oh,
and
okay, gotcha.
then you access
Mm,
your speakers through your home network, and you open up the software, and it'll see that they're online, and you can work with them. Um, so that kind of gets into the client support aspect of our reps, because what we do is pretty advanced. Like the DSPs that we use, they're also used in like mega stadiums for
oh wow.
50,000 people shows. Like there's a ton of capability in there, and it's not that like I do have a thing on the FAQ actually, um, that tells
Oh
people
yeah.
how they can set up our Carbon Series subwoofers. You know, it's just like a little breakdown and all that. There's also a manual and everything else. So it's not like I'm saying you can't touch your subwoofer, but our certified reps are actually certified by me and to work on that product. And I'm like there's one or two of them will do some remote work so they can tie into your home network and dial things in for you. Um, but like there's a lot of advantages to having people that are specifically trained to and know like the inner workings of everything and are fully competent in doing that work. And but if you want to play around, kind of the punchline is select one of the presets that gets you closest to your target house curve. So whatever target curve that you're plotted out in your processor, what you want to hit, select a preset that gets you the closest to that, and then just dial it in from there with a few EQ spots, some crossover work, and some delay. Delay is always a really good thing to play with, and make sure that it's nice and tight, and away you go. So it's fairly, I wouldn't say that it's intuitive, but if anything does happen, like if you bought a Cassini product, you always have your rep to go back to. So the rep is there, they're trained to actually do work and to help you. So that's taken care of. If you buy internet direct from me, you contact me directly and I'll take you through some steps to, resolve an issue or whatever the condition may or may not be and get things sorted out. And away you go. So yeah, like it's not really user friendly, but it's accessible and it allows you access to some advanced features like all pass filtering, very, very highly accurate and very small increment delay features, um, a ton of EQ, PEQ stuff. You get quite a bit with it. And while it would be good to run it on like IP based software or access point, the realities of the software that or the DSP that we use, it doesn't fit that specific market. Like not as of yet. If something comes out where that is available, then we'll be right on board with that for sure.
Okay. So we have a question from Callie J, and I believe Callie J also said that he demoed your towers at I guess at your place at some point. I'm not sure who that is, but he says on the subs with plate amps, can you daisy chain And will there be an option to buy slave subs?
Like a master slave. Well, yes. First off, like daisy chain in what way? Like
I'm assuming
network?
just your casual, like, hey, I've got one one XLR output coming from my processor. I don't have room to plug in more subs. Can I just daisy chain like you can with some other subs and just get the same signal? Or
Mm,
I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. If you're limited
yeah.
on the actual like inputs on your receiver or processor for sub ins or
Um,
sub out.
yeah. We don't have any sub outs. We just have dual sub ins.
Okay.
Um, so two XLRs, and those XLRs work one of either way. Like if you run a splitter right at that XLR and you put two in, essentially what it does is it pumps up your gain because you're running the signal in parallel, and so you get more gain out of it. So if you've got like a pre-pro that is down on voltage, that's a great way to make that up
Mm.
without having to jack everything up to Chinatown trying to get it all sorted out. Um, and then we've got uh, another thing that it does automatically is it'll take stereo left and right, and it'll automatically sum them into mono. So if you have like stereo only, but you want more filled out in the low end, you have that opportunity off of your preamp to split your left and right channel, drop them into your subwoofer left and right, and it'll sum to mono, and then you can just blend it through the DSP that's on board in the unit. And that's I think that's a pretty cool and clever way of being able to work with all kinds of systems, like not just HT, but also high end stereo as well. Because like I'm a big classical music fan. Like I love like Camille Saint-Saëns. Um, the pipe organ symphony number 3 is probably one of my favorite pieces of all time, favorite music pieces of all time. And there's solid like 16 hertz, 14 hertz content in that piece, like solid. So it digs, and a subwoofer definitely helps round it all out. So for people that have those kinds of constraints, there's versatility at least. As far as getting into like daisy chaining them together, um, it might be a possibility in the future, but really the way the 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 systems are going with new tech, a lot of processors are coming out with multi-sub outs, you know, and even at that, like an XLR, you can run like 100 and something feet.
Hmm.
So, you can just split the signal, and no, you don't necessarily have to daisy chain, but you can split your signal. Like, I think you can split an XLR for our subwoofer on input sensitivity. You can split it down like 10 times. So on one XLR output on your pre, you can split that sucker down to, like, if it's doing like a solid, 3-6 volts somewhere in there, you can run 10 subwoofers off of it.
Interesting.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to daisy chain, like you can find other ways around that, you know. And yeah. What was the other part of that question? Daisy chain, master slave. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Will there be? Let me see, will there be an option to buy slave subs?
Probably not. Um, master slave is super application dependent, and there honestly isn't a huge call for them. And what you can do, like on the input to one of my subwoofers, if you have an extra, if you want another subwoofer, I mean, you do have to run power, but they're really efficient. So you can run a 115-volt circuit, 15 amps, and run one of my subwoofers no problem off of it. And then you just split your XLR signal off of your first subwoofer, and you can split it right at that subwoofer and then daisy chain kind of that way through a series of splitters in the signal path. And I mean, is it super ideal? No, but also running, like 12 gauge and 10 gauge, 2-conductor, 4-conductor speaker cable drops. I mean, that's not super, what do you call it? Like convenient either. Like 4-conductor 12 gauge can get pricey quick. So it all depends on the application. And I think the last time I got asked about a master slave was quite a while, at least like 4 years ago. So it's not something that's in super high demand. However, all of that said, we do have the ability to make custom configurations. So if a stock off the shelf, go to National AV or any one of the other reps doesn't fit the bill, like, whatever's in stock doesn't fit the bill, we can make something to order. And Nathan is the specialist on that. He does all the custom stuff. Nice. So he can customize a situation. Like actually right now, I believe he has a master slave set of 21s.
Oh, wow.
I think he has them in his shop somewhere. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But I for some reason that just popped into my head. I don't know if he's watching, man, but if you do, like put a message on the chat.
Chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I mean, no matter what, we got you covered. But as far as stock offerings, I'm not sure if that's gonna track. It might, and if we get enough demand for it, yeah, it'll definitely change. For sure. Keeping a company fluid is really important. Callie J, I'll bug him next week for a demo. Awesome.
Well, cool, man. I think we're right at an hour and a half, so I think we covered everything. The only thing I had left was the products used in the speakers, but you kind of covered that when we were talking about the other products. So if you guys have any more questions after the fact, go leave them in the comments, and I'll either send them to Cody, and I'll reply, or if he, decides to comment or come back and watch this. But yeah, I think that's a really nice first introduction to Harbottle. Cody, thank you for coming on. Like I said, we're probably going to try to do some future live streams where we talk a little bit more about some deep dive stuff that can really help you. Knowledgeable stuff that can help you in your choosing a speaker, what to look for when buying a sub, what really matters as far as data, because I know, like we were talking before off screen a couple of weeks ago, there's a lot of data out there that's sometimes a little bit misleading, maybe not necessarily useful. What type of data you should be looking for when purchasing a sub. So
even just hard to read.
Yeah.
Not everybody's an audio pro,
Right.
Gets tough. Yeah, no, man, I'd love to come back on for sure, man.
Yeah, definitely will.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, we'll work on that, and appreciate you coming on and giving us an introduction to Harbottle. So looking forward to some future live streams, some future content. Everybody, thank you for tuning in on this Friday evening. Make sure you hit the like button so the algorithm can push this out, because the algorithm has been pretty whack this year. As far as like everybody's views are like all over the place and stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.